Welcome back into the channel. The 2024 NFL Draft, I think, may go down as one of the best of all time, and we are officially 2 years removed from it, and let's see how a redraft would go. Now, I want to be 1000% perfectly clear here. I'm going to give you guys my opinions, but this article made by Alex Ballantyne at Bleacher Report. If you have any criticisms of the article, those go to Alex Ballantyne of Bleacher Report, not of Dylan Mehl. Now, listen, when Dylan Mehl comes out here and gives his opinions and I tell you, hey, I would do this differently, and you say, nah, you're wrong, we can discuss that in the comment section. The number one pick, though, on the redraft, Chicago Bears would take quarterback Drake Maye out of North Carolina. Listen, I think this is the correct pick, and I know that there are Bears fans out there that absolutely love Caleb Williams. I love Caleb Williams. I think the Iceman is nice. But Drake Maye in year 2 is finishing as a top 2 MVP voter and is already in a conference championship. In terms of physical attributes, he's pretty close to Caleb Williams in terms of everything you would love. I think Caleb's a little bit more mobile and can make a lot more different throws on the run. But when you compare Drake's size, speed, mobility, and I think most importantly, accuracy, especially in the short to mid yardage game, Drake Maye becomes the obvious pick here, at least to me. So I do 100% agree with the first pick being Drake Maye. Number 2, Commanders, Jayden Daniels still. So they have Jayden over Caleb, and this is where I would disagree. We have a 2-year sample size of these guys now, and I think Caleb has shown actual progression. And when you put him with a smart offensive mind, he did have a really successful year. And again, this isn't just grading the first 2 years of their career, because obviously if you pan out the first, 2 seasons for each guy's, Jayden Daniels' rookie season was better than either of Caleb's 2 years, if we're being quite frank. NFC Championship, clear Rookie of the Year, really superstar talent when he plays. But we've already seen the big thing that is a concern for Jayden Daniels: injury creep up on him in year 2. He had like 3 or 4 unrelated injuries. His body's just a little bit more fragile, and I think when you think where Caleb Williams could go into the future versus Jayden Daniels and what we've seen this year, I would take Caleb Williams number 2 over Jayden Daniels when it comes to still just kind of projecting out the rest of their careers. But listen, Jayden, I think, would still be number 3. So yeah, and here we go. Bleacher Report, they got Caleb Williams at number 3. I don't hate it as much. I don't know how much this guy factored in injuries specifically. Did he factor in injuries? The Commanders would have to think a lot about this pick longer than the last season as they did. Yeah. So he factored in injuries, and he still went with Jayden just based on how impressed he was with Jayden in the 2024 season, which, I understand, because again, Jayden's 2024 season was better than either of the 2 years Caleb's produced. But I think with Caleb's trajectory, what we've seen with him with 1 year of Ben Johnson, just the unreal throws that he's made, the 2 playoff throws on the run to the left, jump man, Adonze, and then that 4th down to Komet to send that Rams game to overtime last week. I would go Caleb at 2, Jayden at 3, but I think this draft might have 3, dare I say, top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL at some point. I think that by 2028, it's possible that Caleb Williams, Drake Maye, and Jayden Daniels are all consensus top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL. And I don't think that's crazy to say. I don't think it is. Number 4, Arizona Cardinals take quarterback Bo Nix out of Oregon. Listen, I do think Bo is a franchise guy, and I think that this is a fair pick. Kyler and them clearly going separate ways. Bo has proven, while he's not in the tier of elite status in terms of a draft prospect with what we know about the 2 years as the top 3 guys, Bo Nix has made the playoff both years. Bo Nix led his team to a 1 seed this year. There's a proven ability to win with Bo Nix, and I do think that he's gotten better. He's a really solid quarterback in terms of using his legs, navigating the pocket, and even has scramble ability. I think he can run an offense. He obviously has some limitations in terms of athleticism and build that some of these other guys don't, but Bo Nix, a really, really solid pick. Obviously, they originally went with Marvin Harrison Jr. here. I don't even know if they would take Marv as the top wide receiver. I'd probably take Malik Neighbors over him, although I would probably still lean Marv over BT7, but I guess we'll get there when we get there. Number 5, the Chargers, Jared Verse. I disagree. I think the Chargers would still go Joe Alt. I know he dealt with injury this year, but I think we're going to see next year and kind of throughout his career that Joe Alt is a generational tackle, and we know how Jim Harbaugh is. He views offensive linemen as weapon. We heard it at the time of this draft. That's why they went Joe Alt, and it's why they didn't go Malik Neighbors. I would go Joe Alt again. Jared Verse is a really solid pick, and don't get me wrong, I think Jared Verse should absolutely be a top 10 pick in this draft somewhere, but I would go Joe Alt here still if I was the Chargers. But Verse, obviously, defensive rookie of the year, has the potential to be a one-day defensive player of the year, a really special talent. So, it's not crapping on Verse specifically, but I would go Alt here in that spot. The Giants, they took Malik Neighbors then, they'll take Malik Neighbors now. Yeah, I think so, right? I mean, if Joe Alt was still on the board, in the hypothetical version of this mock draft, would the Giants today go Alt? Because obviously they have Andrew Thomas at left tackle. You could put Alt at right tackle. And then you would have had your offensive line pretty much set for Jackson Dart. And then you have a top 5 pick in this draft where you could go Makai Lemon, Jordan Tyson, Carnell Tate. It's interesting thought experiment. Obviously, you don't know that at the time. So do you just take the superstar wide receiver talent in Malik Neighbors? Could be interesting. I wouldn't go Verse over Neighbors for the Giants situation because, again, like they have a ton of edge talent. I know that they didn't have Abdul Carter at the time, but I still wouldn't have passed up on Neighbors necessarily for Verse in the Giants situation. I think I would go Neighbors, but if Alt is on the board, which he is in terms of this, that's interesting. And Alt slipping, show some love to the O lineman out there. Tennessee Titans, Joe Alt. They originally take J.C. Latham. Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think if the Chargers did what I said and they took Alt and then Verse was here at 7, Verse at 7 of the Titans to pair him with Jeffrey Simmons also wouldn't be bad. But, obviously Alt has shown more upside than Latham at this point in their careers. Falcons, tight end Brock Bowers. They originally took Michael Penix. I'm trying to think who's coming down the pipeline here. I don't think so. And because then what do you do with Kyle Pitts? Are you running 2 tight end sets and neither guy is really a blocker? I mean, I love Bowers. I almost think that actually the Giants, instead of Malik Neighbors, should take Brock Bowers. I kind of feel that. And then maybe you could have a conversation about the Falcons taking Neighbors, but I just don't know. Again, it obviously Brock Bowers is an elite talent, and maybe it's just, hey, trade off of Kyle Pitts, and that's what it is. But I wouldn't go Penix, that's for sure. I think Atlanta might actually move off of him this offseason. The Chicago Bears, they take Marvin Harrison Jr. They originally selected Rome Odunze. Man, if Bowers had fell one more spot, they're probably taking him over Loveland. So that could have been something. But Marv, so the Bears, all right. Minnesota Vikings from New York Jets, they take Quinyon Mitchell. They originally took J.J. McCarthy. Breaks my heart as an Eagles fan to see Q go. But yeah, Quinyon Mitchell is already a top 5 corner in football. Yeah, you got to take him if you're a corner needy team. Makes complete sense to me. The Jets, they take Michael Penix Jr. No, I would still take Fashanu. I mean, at the end of the day, what do we know about Michael Penix 2 years in? He hasn't made the playoffs, and he once again has a major knee injury. Why would I reach at 11 if I'm the Jets to take Michael Penix? This pick makes no sense to me. The Jets would not be in a better spot today with Michael Penix. They'd be in a worse spot because they still have to figure out their offensive line. Like Membu and Fashanu, that's the future there. So this is a bad pick, in my opinion. Bad pick. Denver Broncos, they take Brian Thomas Jr. Obviously, they originally took Bo Nix. He's not there at this point in time. This does make sense to me. I think a true wide receiver 1 field stretcher in Brian Thomas Jr. And I know Brian Thomas Jr. had his struggles this particular season, so we'll see kind of where it turns out. But I think at 12, you take the risk. And with Sean Payton pairing this guy up with a Cortland Sutton and a Troy Franklin underneath, I think Brian Thomas could have absolute success in Denver. And I think Denver should look to go get a true wide receiver 1 vertical field stretcher. If they can bring in George Pickens this offseason, that'd be massive for them. Absolutely. The Raiders, they take Olu Fashanu. Obviously, their original pick was Brock Bowers. And again, if Fashanu made it to this point, this is a fine pick, in my opinion, because the Raiders, they need everything. So best player available. You could argue that they should be taking Cooper DeJean. You could argue it. I'm just saying, because they need help everywhere. You could also have argued Laitu Latu for them. New Orleans, they select him. They originally took Fuaga. It's interesting because I like New Orleans' offensive line going forward with Fuaga and with Kelvin Banks. So going Latu, maybe that is the move. But I don't know. The Colts, they take Cooper DeJean. Obviously, they originally took Latu. Yeah, DeJean's already a top 3 nickel in the sport. The guy can make any tackle. I love him on the Philadelphia Eagles. He's one of one in terms of watching. Obviously, had a pick 6 in the Super Bowl was a big deal. Cooper DeJean going in the first round makes a ton of sense in my estimation. Seahawks, they took Byron Murphy. They keep Byron Murphy. He's had a really strong year, too. He's fit pretty strongly in this Mike McDonald system. So I think continuing to take him is a fine choice, absolutely. Dallas Turner to the Minnesota Vikings. He hasn't boomed quite the way that I thought he had the potential to, but I do think he's a solid player. So Minnesota, sticking him, keeping him in that Brian Flores defense, I don't have a problem with that. The Bengals, they took Amarius Mims. They keep taking Amarius Mims. That's fine to me. I do think that they still need massive offensive line help, but I don't think Mims is necessarily the problem in Cincinnati. So not a bad pick there. The Rams, they get Chop Robinson after they originally had Jared Verse. Yeah, they still need an edge rusher presence. Obviously, this was after Aaron Donald retired, so they were looking to rebuild that defensive line. Verse, ultimately the better selection, but no longer available here. You go Chop Robinson. Not a problem there. The Steelers, they take Ladd McConkey. They originally took Troy Fontenot. Yeah, I think McConkey is the right pick here. I was just trying to think if there was better weapons, but Pittsburgh most certainly needs a weapon, and Ladd McConkey has proven to be pretty good throughout his career. He obviously had a better rookie season than his sophomore season, but there was some additional weapons in Los Angeles, and then the offensive line got hurt. So, passing game takes a hit there because a lot of stuff has to be more quick. So I think, but McConkey would ultimately be the best wide receiver on Pittsburgh. Hot take, McConkey over DK Metcalf? I don't know, but I ultimately do very much agree with this particular pick here. The Miami Dolphins, they select Rome Odunze. Rome Odunze versus Ladd McConkey. That's an interesting one. Odunze was on fire to open up this year. Then he got a foot injury, tried to play through it, but obviously McConkey had the better rookie year. That's a really interesting debate because I do think McConkey's a better fit in Miami too. I would like to see them flipped personally, but oh man, going forward, would you rather have Ladd McConkey or Rome Odunze? That's a tough question for me. It really is, and maybe it's just because I was like everybody, like people in the NFL draft. I was obviously higher on Rome Odunze, the prospect, and I felt like the first month and a half of the season, we saw everything. Then he was dealing with a nagging foot injury, and now you kind of have to project off of a 6-game sample size when he's had 2 years to play versus McConkey, who had a really strong rookie year, but obviously pulled it back a little bit this year. Man. I think if I was the Steelers, McConkey fits a little bit better. But if I'm Miami, then at this point in time, like I don't know Tyreek's going to get hurt. I feel like Miami should have gone defense here. They did take Chop Robinson, but Nate Wiggins wouldn't have been a bad pick for them. They obviously need corner help. I just don't think Rome fits their need. So I disagree with the Dolphins going offense. Maybe they could have gone offensive line. But I would have landed more on the defensive side here. Miami still needs help defensively. So Nate Wiggins, not a bad choice. Obviously, the Eagles, they originally took Quinyon Mitchell. He's no longer available. Nate Wiggins is the next best corner available. They desperately needed help that offseason. That's why they drafted both Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. So Nate Wiggins is the next best pick there. Absolutely. Jacksonville Jaguars, Braden Fisk, they originally selected Brian Thomas. That's fine. I think the Jags need help on the defensive line. I think Braden Fisk also would have been a fine pick for Miami, truthfully. But for the Jags here, that's cool. The Detroit Lions, they took Terrion Arnold. They're still going to take Terrion Arnold. I don't know, man. I don't know. Terrion Arnold, I think he's overrated. I think he commits way too many PIs, but is what it is. Adrian Cooper, he still ends up on Green Bay. Going back to this Dolphins pick, to be honest, instead of Rome Odunze, I would take Adrian Cooper to be the center of their defense, truthfully. And obviously now we know he works well in a Jeff Hafley defense, which 2 years later would have worked out for Dolphins fans. But I think this is a fine pick. for Green Bay. Cooper took a massive jump in year 2, and I think by the end of next year could be regarded as one of the better linebackers in all of football, if not already. Buccaneers center Zach Frazier. They originally took center Graham Barton. Yeah, that makes sense to me. Frazier ended up being the better player. Arizona Cardinals, Roger Rosengarten. They originally took Darius Robinson. That's interesting to me. Robinson's dealt with some injuries, so I don't think it's bad. You know, it's a fine pick. Kansas City, they take J.C. Latham. They originally took Xavier Worthy. Yeah, they could use help at the offensive tackle. But then they did take Simmons a year later. But I guess if we don't know that pick's coming down the pipeline, J.C. Latham at the time out of Bama makes a ton of sense. Cowboys, Kool-Aid McKinstry. They originally took Tyler Guyton. I think they'd stay Guyton. I think that the Cowboys value the trenches. And I think like while Kool-Aid McKinstry's a good player, I also think Detroit should have taken McKinstry over Terrion Arnold in this redraft, by the way. So 0 for 2 on that pick for me. Baltimore Ravens, Troy Fautanu. Obviously, they originally took Wiggins. Yeah, it's fine. I think best player available, offensive lineman. You know, that's cool to take. The Niners, they take Fuaga instead of Pearsall. Yeah, that's cool to me. I do think Xavier Worthy in a Niners offense would be quite interesting, to be honest, but I think Fuaga is a cool pick. And then Carolina Panthers, they ended up getting this pick. They select Ricky Pearsall instead of Xavier Legette. Would you guys take Ricky Pearsall or Xavier Worthy right now going forward? Just something interesting to talk about there. You know, Xavier Worthy doesn't go in the first round of this draft. JJ McCarthy doesn't go, which I think it's really interesting that JJ McCarthy isn't picked by anybody here. You know, like, could a team have convinced themselves into McCarthy, not the Dolphins? Pittsburgh, right? Like at 20, they didn't have Rodgers yet. I know JJ didn't have a great sophomore season, but there were a lot of injuries to that offensive line. And then obviously he was banged up. I just think it's odd that the article so highly thinks of Michael Penix to the point where Michael Penix had to go, what was it, 11th overall to the Jets. But JJ McCarthy went undrafted. Because to me, if I had to draft one of them right now, it would be McCarthy. Much younger, much better size, better mobility, and yes, he was banged up this year, but Michael Penix has a really long injury history dating back to college. So to me, I'd rock it out with JJ McCarthy. You know, probably at pick 20 with Pittsburgh, but hey, this is the 2024 draft redrafted again. I do think this has the potential to go down as one of the best draft class of all time, man. McConkey's great. Roma Dunze, I think, has high upside. Same with Dallas Turner. Byron Murphy's been a stud. Cooper DeJean, already one of the best corners in football. Leitu Latu's been outstanding. Fashanu, Brian Thomas Jr., not Michael Penix. Quinyon Mitchell. Marv, I still have high hopes for. Brock Bowers could be an all-time tight end. Joe Alt could be an all-time tackle. Malik Neighbors is really, really special. Verse, a great edge rusher. And then the 4 quarterbacks, man. Bo Nix, Caleb Williams, Jayden Daniels, Drake Maye. So that is the 2024 NFL Draft redrafted. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. What'd you think of the picks? What'd you think of my opinions? What'd you think of Bleacher Report's opinions? I'll link the article in the description if you guys want to go through and read it if I didn't spend enough time on it. I do appreciate you guys' support. We're quickly approaching 600 subscribers. Reaction video tomorrow to the AFC and NFC Championship games. If you love the NFL and you're not yet subscribed to this YouTube channel, smash that button. I'll catch you next time. Peace.